Let's take everything we've learned about graphing angles thus far and put it all together in these example problems. So in example 4, we need to do a couple different things. First off, we need to graph the angle in standard position. Second, we're going to classify the angle according to where the terminal side lays. So basically that means what quadrant is the angle in. Finally, we're going to find 3 coterminal angles, and it says we want one that is positive and one that is negative, at least. So that's where we're going to start. Let's start right here with this 60 degrees. To graph it in standard position, I have my coordinate grid, 0, 90, 180, 270, and 360. I always put my initial side on the positive x-axis. That hasn't changed. Now I want to graph up to 60 degrees. So that's going to be in this first quadrant. And it's closer to 90 than it is to 0. So I'm going to say about there. Gives me 60 degrees. So the green step, step 1, I have graphed the angle in standard position. I have my initial side on the positive x. I have the terminal side where it ends. And because it's a positive 60, that's why I went counterclockwise. If it was a negative 60, I would have gone 60 that way. Second, classify the angle according to where its terminal side lays. This angle is in quadrant 1, so we're going to say this is a quadrant 1 angle. I've classified it, that's good. Now, step 3, I want to find 3 coterminal angles. Well, at least one that is positive and one that is negative. So let's find our coterminal angles. Let's go ahead and find the negative one first, because the negative one will be the same terminal side. I'm just going to go clockwise instead of counterclockwise. So I need to find this amount right here. Now, I know that the entire circle is 360. So I can do 360 minus this 60 here, and that will give me what's left. And I make it negative because of the direction I'm going. So instead, you can kind of think of it like this. You can take your original 60 degrees and minus the whole circle, minus 360, and that's going to give you negative 300 degrees. So this clockwise is negative 300 degrees. So essentially when we're finding coterminal angles, is we're just adding and subtracting one full circle to the angle we've got. So we can keep subtracting 360 and that will keep us at this same spot. Or I could take my 60 degrees and I could add 360, add one full circle to give me 420. And that will also be the exact angle. All I did is go one full circle and 60 degrees more. So these are all coterminal angles, 60, negative 300, 420. They all share the same terminal side. We're just going around the circle in different directions and multiple times. So at the end of the day, easiest way to find coterminal angles is just keep adding and subtracting a full circle until you get what you want. Now, in this case, the problem said I want one positive and one negative. I have that, one positive, one negative, check. However, I do need 3 coterminal angles, so we're going to do this again, where now I can take either of these angles that I have and keep adding and subtracting one full circle to keep going around multiple times and get the same coterminal angle, the angle that shares the same terminal side. So I'm going to say, let's do another positive one. So I'm going to take my 420. I'm going to add another 360 to it, so I get another positive coterminal angle, and that gives me 780. So all three of these will be coterminal to 60. They all share the same terminal side, they're just different amounts of circles apart. So having practiced that, let's have you try C. So I want you to try C. This is the other positive angle, and then we'll come back and we'll do another negative angle together. But do all three of these steps, graph it, identify it, and then find your coterminal angles, but this time do it with 540 degrees. So pause the video, try out those three things for this problem, and then come back to check your work. Let's check your work. So here is our angle graphed in standard position. I found out that with 540, I was going to have to go around the circle more than once. So I went all the way around to 360, and then to 450, and 540. So I ended right there. This is called a quadrantal angle. That is a vocab word I kind of skipped up above. Sorry about that. Quadrantal angle is if it is the angle lies on one of the axes. That's what makes it quadrantal. And I found a couple coterminal angles by adding and subtracting a full circle. I subtracted a full circle to get 180. Then I subtracted a full circle again to get negative 180, because remember the instructions asked for a positive and a negative. So that gives me a positive and a negative. And then I just found another one so I could have a third. So that's some practice with positive angles. Let's come over here and try negative angles. Now, one difference in this one is, remember that if we're graphing a negative angle, we're now going clockwise. So when I go to label these different angles on this coordinate grid, I'm actually going to go clockwise and label them negatively. So I'm going to label this one negative 90, then negative 180, negative 270, negative 360. So I just went this direction and labeled them all negative this time. So it makes it a little easier for me to see that negative 225. Initial side always still goes there. So now I need negative 225. So that's going to be somewhere in here between negative 180 and negative 270. So I'm going to draw negative 225 right here. And I can identify this as a quadrant 2 angle in the second quadrant. Now, I would like you to pause the video and practice finding the coterminal angles. So adding and subtracting a full circle to get what you need. In this case, we need 3 coterminal, one of which is positive, one of which is negative. So pause the video, try that out on your own, and then come back to check and see how you did. Okay, these are the coterminal ones that I got. You don't have to have these same ones. You just have to have one positive and one negative, and they all need to be 360 away from the one you started with. Last problem for practicing putting this all together is we're graphing one more negative angle, and this angle you're going to go around the circle multiple times. So practice this last example problem and then come back and check your work. Last one. So here it is graphed. You ended up having to go around the circle 2 times and a little bit more to get to negative 750 right there. So this is a quadrant 4 angle. And I added 360 a bunch of times so that I could get one negative angle and one positive angle. So then I fit the instructions for what I need. You don't have, once again, you don't have to have these same angles. You could have added and subtracted differently to get different answers. You just need one positive and one negative. So that is all we're going to go over with graphing angles in standard position. In the next video, we're going to introduce radian measure instead of degree measure.